So I'll start off by saying, when I was going into 9th grade, my mom took me school shopping, and of that batch of clothing, I had 2 Rusty shirts. One of them with Kalani Robb on the back, and the other one with you on the back. And those were my pride and joy going into my 9th grade year.
Oh, that's classic, man. Yeah, those are good times in surfing. You know, that was kind of when it was all getting big and all the companies are growing, and yeah, that was a good time in life. You know, I enjoyed going from being an amateur to signing, like a pro contract with Rusty. It was kind of a big step in the right direction.
Do you remember being featured on the back of those T-shirts?
Sometimes I do. Yeah, I remember a couple of them. It's funny to look back on that graphic design. Now when you look back, there's a lot of tribal tattoo stuff going on.
Totally.
And, yeah, it was definitely, that early 90s, but it was cool. It was very cool to be, like I said, when you're felt like you're on a team with a bunch of really good surfers, it was a good feeling.
Do you have any of those shirts as relics that you can show your kids nowadays?
I don't think so. Maybe my mom, because my mom's a saver and a hoarder.
Is she?
Totally. And she probably, she's got boxes and boxes of stuff that I tell her to throw away all the time. And she thinks my kids are going to want to see them. And I'm like, no, they're not.
Yeah. It'd be good just to have.
Yeah.
As a relic.
I'll have to go through the boxes someday. It'll be pretty funny. It'll probably holes in them, but.
That's funny.
Yeah.
You're right, though. From a graphic design standpoint, I can't imagine now any of the brands putting the athlete themselves on the shirt. You
only see that now with people that win world titles. They'll make a T-shirt like.
You think so? Like, is there a Gabriel T-shirt or a John's image on a shirt?
I think Billabong did a shirt for Italo this year.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
The Stoked shirt.
Yeah, and I'm getting one of those shirts, and I'm stoked because I love Italo. So
do you really?
Yeah, I think he's super cool I don't know him really well, but like for what I do know of him, I think he's great for surfing.
Why?
Because he's fun. He makes it look like he's having fun. He's not just making it look like, but he's actually having a good time doing this and enjoying every step of the way. And he seems. He's got a nice lightheartedness to him, but he also focuses without being. He doesn't seem rigid. He can win and focus without being too rigid.
Why does that matter? Because
I think it shows young kids that like, hey, you don't have to be super serious to win. You can have fun with this. And I look at someone like Griffin, and I think he's got the same kind of attitude, which is I love it. It makes me want to go surf. It makes they always have big smiles on their face, and I dig that. Yeah, I like that kind of demeanor.
It's interesting. You look at somebody like Gabriel, who is like so dogged and persistent in his goal to get tens, win heats, win comps, win world titles. Doesn't look like he's actually having fun. He's doing it as a means to an end. His end goal is winning championships. And so the surfing is a means to an end. But I almost feel like what he's not realizing is that the fun thing that you're talking about translates to the judges' scores. Like there's something unique about surfing. This isn't true for swimming. This isn't true for even other baseball or whatever. But there's something unique about surfing where having fun and kind of not forcing something, just free-flowing jazz and dance is what surfing is. And Italo's embracing that, and him having fun is going to net him a world title. And so while Gabriel can try as hard as he wants, he almost undermines his own efforts by not having fun. Does that make sense? Or do you believe that?
Sense. Yeah, I think he probably has fun, maybe more fun than we see. But when he's at the contest, he looks pretty serious and focused, and he's really aware. I think on land he's a different guy. I think he's not that way really. He seems pretty relaxed. I've stayed with him for a couple winters when I was riding for Rip Curl, and he's a pretty chill kid. But you get him in the heat, and it's there's ice in his veins,
right?
And he doesn't care who you are, or where you're from.
Yeah.
And I just think maybe some people believe that they just can't win that way, like the way be a little bit more fun and lighthearted like Italo is. And so it was cool to see that Italo showed the world like, hey man, he might have been stressed. It didn't really seem like it. He just looked like he was charging and having fun with it and smiling, slapping high fives to everybody after heats. And, I definitely wasn't like that in my earlier in my career, and I wish I was.
Yeah. Actually, I want to talk about that. It wasn't going to start the conversation there, but we might as well. Your nickname or your moniker was Bonehead.
Yeah, that's a really funny story and where that came from, because that came from a guy that I used to surf with a lot who was like, I think he was 4-time U.S. champion, maybe, Mike Lambrisi.
Yeah.
And so we were good friends, and Mike even lived with me for a little bit. And we would wake up, every day at 5:30, meet and surf and train and all this stuff. And he's a great guy. He was really fun to be around, but that came from me coming to the beach one day and forgetting my wetsuit. So, and then I'm like, really, like, there's a lot worse things than that, but that nickname really stuck. And then I think Aquila Ipa really drove it in with the rest of the guys, and just kind of gained momentum from there. But yeah, after a point, I was like, wait a minute. You're calling me a bonehead, but I've done a lot more than you have in your career.
Right. Well, I think maybe the way that I interpreted it, watching from afar, was that you maybe never fully actualized your potential. Like, there's all this world championship talk, and you didn't win a title. And it came down to decision making often in heats. Right. For people who can't see right now, Taylor's nodding his head. Yes.
I completely agree.
So the bonehead thing is like, well, dude, you have all the talent in the world. Why aren't you winning world titles? And it comes down to decision making. What are your thoughts in hindsight?
Oh, totally. I know exactly what it was.
What was it?
What we study in the Keeley Meditation, which is compartments. I would second guess myself constantly. I was the worst, or I'd beat myself up after a loss. And if you're sitting out in the heat and you've got, okay, here comes a set and you got priority, and you're in your head going, oh, should I go on the first one? Should I go on the second one? Should I go on the third one? Should I wait? That is just not a good place to be. You're just doing circles in your head. And I would do that constantly. And I think it really had to come down to a lot of times coming to the beach and, people saying like, oh, why'd you go on the second one? You should have waited for the third one. And, and all those, and they mean well, they're not trying to be mean or anything, but it's like all that would just weigh on me and like drive me nuts. Like I just wanted to be too perfect, and it would totally be counterproductive. And so I was my own worst enemy with decision making.
For how long? For 20 years?
No, I wouldn't say at the end of my career. I think at the end of my career, I was on tour because I would have got off tour a lot sooner, but like getting on Rip Curl and then hanging out with one of my best friends, Mick, and Mick made the tour fun for me again, because a lot of my friends that I grew up with, the momentum guys, were getting off tour. There was Kelly, who of course was still on, but he's like doing his thing, and his thing is busy and all over the joint, and mine was kind of like more standard tour life, like come home, and he'd be traveling so much, and I just couldn't. It was harder to connect with him. But with Mick, it was like we liked to train together, we liked to surf together, and it was just fun for me to be on tour for someone like that, and to see him win his first world title and his second, and just being there with him along the way. I kind of like I fell in love with surfing again, not so much the competitive side again, but it was still fun to be there, still like to have good heats and go out and get good waves at these events and show my surfing, but I just was losing the competitive edge that you need. Right. The ruthlessness of like, at all costs, you are going to, whether it means taking this guy out on interference or playing a shitty priority game with them, those are sometimes things that you're going to have to do if you're going to want a world title. Yeah. And I just couldn't do it anymore. Yeah. I didn't like the way I felt afterwards. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but I'm just saying for me personally, I just did not want to play the game anymore.
Right. That scenario that you just illustrated, where you're in your head, you have priority, there's 3 waves coming, you don't know which wave to go on. With the benefit of hindsight and meditation that you're talking about, what is the right thing to do in that scenario? Is it almost irrelevant which wave you go on as long as you're committed to the act? Like, just go on the first wave and commit to the decision? What's the right strategy?
Well, that's always, I mean, for me, there'd be situations where I'd have priority and my coach would be like, why didn't you just sit on them? Like, why didn't you just stay out there? Why did you catch that wave? And it opened up the door for him to catch a wave too at the end, and I was like, because, man, that wave looks so fun. Like, I gotta go. I look at Sebastian Ziet sometimes and I'm like, yeah. He had the same, he has the same virus, he just gets so excited and just wants to surf that he sees waves as in a matter of like, this wave just looks so fun, I can't pass it up. It's not what you want to do if you're really
That's a good comparison, by the way. I never thought about that.
Just we can't help ourselves. I'm definitely, there's no secret, I'm a way better surfer than a competitor.
Right.
That's the way I've always been. I think competitive surfing was a means for me to do what I wanted to do my whole life, which was stay in the ocean.
Right.
So it was a way for me to make a living, and I could be on tour and just kind of qualify. I got to a point where I was like, I am not going to do what needs to be done to be a world champ. I kind of knew it. I kind of felt like I didn't mind the training part or the traveling part or the surfing part, but it was some of the other stuff that I was a little like, I couldn't sleep well at night. Not that I never saw certain guys, like I never saw Mick do anything shitty to anyone else. Like he still won 3 world titles.
Right.
And then you saw some stuff that was pretty ruthless, and you're like, wow, okay, but he won a world title, and that was the end
justifies
goal.
The means.
Yeah, and justifies the means.
Yeah.
But the end for me will be, I don't know, hopefully in some way off distance in my late 80s or 90s that I stopped surfing. That'll be the end. It wasn't like the tour was the end for me. It was just,
right.
It was just a chapter of my surfing life.
Right. Talking about being in your head and getting in your own way during the competitive years, if you realized that was your problem then, why weren't you able to rectify the problem? Like, I'm curious to have this conversation, or want to have this conversation for kids who may be in a slump, that are surfing competitively, that understand exactly what you're talking about and they identify with it because they get in their own way too. How do you correct course? I feel like it almost gets worse once you recognize it. It's almost harder to then correct. What are strategies?
For me, it wasn't. Yeah, I mean, you're right in that sense. The snowball gets bigger.
Right.
And the harder, for me, I was brought up to, try hard, try your hardest, give it 110%. Well, that was what my coach, like I was working with, I think in the last few years of my tour life, I was working a lot with Chris Gallagher and stuff, and he'd be like, dude, can you just go 75%? But it was so ingrained in me to always go 110%. And then people would they would come up to me and they would like that about me. Like, dude, I love that you go 110%. I go, yeah, but sometimes that's not the best decision, and I lose because of it. But it almost came like a part of me. Like I had to do it because people liked it, and it was an old habit I just couldn't break. I don't think I broke it until I was off tour.
Really?
Yeah. I just couldn't do it. It was very frustrating because I knew what was going on and I still couldn't stop it. So it's kind of like if you watch someone and you're like, oh, they're going to do it again. Yep. I know they're going to do it again, or even you maybe in the lineup, like you paddle out and you're like, I'm not going to get frustrated with this crowd today. Sure enough, you get frustrated. Well, you told yourself you weren't going to do it.
Yep.
But here you are, frustrated again.
Yep.
So what is that? And that's what I wanted to study with the meditation, is what is driving us. That's obviously not, I don't believe that anyone is born a serial killer, or abusive. They were abused. So it's just, they're just, passing on what they've learned. And that goes the same for compartments. I believe that you just it gets to be where you feel like this is part of Taylor Knox, when really it isn't. It was just something I took pride in. And I think there's a saying, what, pride before the fall?
Totally.
Yeah. So, I mean, I found out that statement's pretty damn true.
It's one of the 7 deadly sins.
Right. So there you go.
Yeah. I find we'll always be the ones who get in our own way. You know, like there's people feel victimized in life, or like, oh, my boss doesn't want to promote me or whatever. It's like, your boss wants you to perform. That is in their best interest. Your boss will never be the one subjugating you. Like right. You will always be the one who gets in your own way, you know? And if it isn't through bad habits, it's through pride. It's like, well, now you're successful and you feel proud about something. That'll also undercut you. So humility is key.
It is. And there's a lot of times there's a private war going on inside your head. And people, you don't even know it. You know, like you could look at someone and you would never know that what's going through them inside, you know?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I was looking to a second point, which let's just say our primary point. I was looking outside of myself all the time to try to correct it through coaching or training harder or, you know, I don't know, this supplement or that supplement or, you know, techniques or belief systems, when really I just needed to be alone with my own thoughts. Because, I don't know, what could be more important than understanding your own thoughts?
Yeah.
I haven't found anything more important.
And what's motivating you and baggage that you're carrying that are making you feel that you need to be that guy who's going to deliver 110%.
Yeah, we've all seen it, right? Like we all have friends that get into bad relationships and we're like, God, they're doing it again, you know, like they're on their 4th bad one and always ends bad for them somehow or some way. And you're like, probably a pattern going on here to check out it.
Totally. Yeah. So tell me about the meditation. How did you discover it? What is the meditation? What are you practicing?
It's called Keeley Meditation, Kelee. And I got into it. This May will be 20 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So I teach it. We just taught it down at UCSD Medical School, it's been a class in the med school down there for 5 years now. Being driven by Dr. Daniel Lee. He's the one that runs the class, and then we come down once a semester and speak. My friend Paul. Ron teaches the doctors, and then my friend Paul, who lives here in Carlsbad. He's a Carlsbad fireman. We go down and speak to the students on kind of just our experiences. But and so it was funny because I was a really anti-New Age guy, even though like I did yoga for 20 years. I did yoga for like 12 years, 15 years maybe before I met Ron. And but I always looked at yoga as just like a stretching class. I didn't feel it was very spiritual for me. And then I started to really plateau in the class, and I was kind of like, yeah, whatever, you know, like some of the bigger egos that I've run into have been in yoga classes. So I didn't see much there. And a friend of mine, actually it was Brad Gerlach, suggested that I go and meet up with Ron because I was going through a real hard time in my life. Not on the outside, but on the inside. I was just having a kid and with someone that I wasn't sure if we were going to make it, and it was just tough. But no one really wants to hear that from a pro surfer. They're just like, dude, you got the life, shut up. Like, we don't want to hear your problems, you know?
Totally.
And so for a year I told him, no, I'm not into it, I'm not going. And finally I was like, fuck it, let's go, you know, I'll go see him. And I was expecting to see this guy, and you know, sitting there in lotus position with a shaved head and a red robe, but he wasn't like that at all. He just wearing blue jeans and a t-shirt and sat me down and kind of explained what this 10-minute meditation was, and there was no weird chanting or anything going on. And you know, I didn't want to change who I was. I just wanted to be a truer me because I knew there was more in me that I wasn't accessing. So I went, wow, this is cool. This is normal. Like, I don't have to change like that drastically and just make these. I just need to sit alone by myself for 10 minutes, 20 minutes a day, write some notes down of what I was thinking, how it was working. Good. I'm good with that. You know, I don't have to sit in positions for 4 hours and meditate. Like that's impractical for me, you know? So yeah, that's how it all started. It was funny enough, you know, I was pretty resistant until I just was in a place where I was as unhappy as I've ever been. But if you looked on the outside, I was like, I should have been super happy.
Well, it's weird is when you get everything that you've desired and wanted, it doesn't affect your happiness, you know, like those things are all superficial as it turns out. How long were you practicing until you started seeing benefit, and what were the benefits?
Well, for me, in the place that I was in when I saw him, it took a couple months, but I don't know why I just knew it would work. I just really felt like it was. And then I started thinking, like, this is great because I don't need him. You know, he told me, hey, I may never see you again. And I was like, great. Just teach me how to do this and be on your way. And I like that. I don't like when people are like, oh, you need to come back and see me 20 more times. Like, give me something that I can do on my own.
Yeah.
I think all the answers in life that you're looking for are already in you. You just haven't accessed them. Or you haven't gotten blocks out of the way.
Right.
And so you can live, like I said, a truer you.
Yeah. So what were the benefits that you started seeing after those couple of months?
Well, a lot of patience. A lot more patience was coming to me, and a lot more clarity of like, you know, hey, in life and being a human, yes, you're going to have to make some hard decisions. That's just, you know, and sadness, I think that's also a part of being a human. And there's really not much you're in control of. So you thinking that I'm going to do A, B, and C, and I'm going to be in total control of the outcome of this situation. I mean, how many times have you planned out your week, and by Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday have just gone gone upside down?
Right.
So it's like, okay, you can plan as much as you can, but the only guarantee in this universe is change. And then the one thing I think you can have control over is regrets. And if you are living a truer you don't make decisions that put yourself in a situation where you're going to regret it later. Like reacting to someone's bad mood, later on you're like, oh man, I feel bad, you know, that I snapped at them, you know, or reacted back with them.
Right.
And then that's a regret. And that's something that you're going to have to deal with, not just them. I don't think it's about going to the other person all the time and I need to talk to them to work this out. You need to work it out within yourself.
Right. So what is the practice? Can you explain Keeley meditation?
Sure. It's about sitting in a comfortable position, whatever it is. Preferably with your spine straight, you know, not slouching or anything. And it's about closing your eyes and feeling. It's definitely a feeling. It's not a visualization, but I'm going to explain it to you now so you can kind of visualize it. But it's like a horizontal line of energy, just kind of going down through both hemispheres of the brain, which in Keeley meditation is called the lesser Keeley, and to the surface of the level of the mind, which is kind of the meeting between the greater Keeley, which would be, I guess when people say I had a gut feeling, or in your heart area, like it's kind of like when you see a good friend that you haven't seen for a long time and you really love that friend and you see him and you get that feeling that wells up from within, you're like, yeah, man, so good to see you. Mm-hmm. And then you get cut off in traffic. And notice that feeling of being cut off in traffic is not coming from the same place as the feeling of seeing your good friend. The one is welling up from within you. And then people say like, oh, I had a gut feeling about that person. Probably should trust that. That's what we're trying to tap into more. So as you come down through both hemispheres of the brain, you kind of sit at the surface level of your mind for a couple minutes, kind of just feel the surface level of your mind, and then bring your awareness into one point. So it'd be kind of like if you were right, like kind of where they say the third eye is, you know, and then you kind of pull your awareness to a point and then drop down into kind of like your heart area and just stay there for a few minutes, and just hopefully you won't have things. The goal is not to have things running through your head.
Okay.
It's be complete stillness, no thought, no focusing on breathing, Nothing. You already know how to breathe. If you didn't, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Your body's totally good at it. So, and then you come back and you kind of write down what you were feeling and what you felt, and it gets a lot more complex the more you do it. You start to like unravel the onion of you. Like you're an onion with layers, and you start to go, wow, why am I thinking about that experience I had when I was 8? Like, I didn't realize that it even affected me. You know, like you start to think about things and go, wow, that huge fight that my parents got into when I was 13, I still like have that memory very vivid. Why do I, and how did that affect me? Oh, I didn't realize it affected me and kind of made me, shy away from things. Or everyone's got a really unique path. No one is the same.
Right.
And no one. I could say something to you, and the next guy could say the exact same thing, and you might take it differently.
Totally.
Yeah.
So the 10 minutes, it's about 10 minutes, and the sitting, focusing on a single point and not thinking about your breathing or anything else, you do that for about 10 minutes?
Yeah, 5 to 7 minutes when you're down near Greater Keeley.
Okay.
Yeah, and he has an app that you can download. His voice will run you through it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What's the app called?
It's just Keeley on Apple, I guess.
Okay. And then at the end of that time, you snap yourself out of it, you open your eyes, and write down the notes?
Yeah, just come back to consciousness and write down. I mean, there might be some funny shit in there too. You know what I mean? Like,
okay.
You might be like, I don't know why I'm thinking about this today, but I just write it down anyway and just kind of laugh. And then you can go back in a couple months and go, wow, this was really on my mind like 2 months ago. And I've completely like got through it.
Yeah.
I was really, upset at work, and this person I was working with was really bothering me, and I didn't know if I was in it. And now I'm totally free of it. I've gotten past it. I know exactly what I want to do. Or there might be a big decision coming up.
Yeah.
Like a new job or moving or something. You're like, God, I don't know what to do. And usually those kind of things for me happen when I'm doing basically mundane stuff, like driving or whatever. I'll be driving, listen to a song, whatever. And then all of a sudden it'll just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to do in that situation now. And I've been contemplating on it for like weeks. And now, and then once you know what you want to do and the direction you want to go, you won't have a regret.
Gotcha. Do you do it in the morning?
I do it in the morning. Yeah, that works good for me.
Okay.
Because in the night, sometimes you can nod off and start to go. You definitely don't want to be asleep.
Right. You want to prioritize it.
I know a lot of people come and want to learn it because they don't sleep well. That's like top 3, I would say, of why people come.
Interesting.
I lay my head down on the pillow, man, and I just can't stop thinking about what do I gotta do or what happened that day. Like, I just want to sleep. Right. I just hear that all the time. I want to sleep better.
Right. You said you've been doing it for how many years? 20?
20 in May.
So you were doing it when you were on tour?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was doing it on tour, dedicatedly, like all the time, and I just didn't, it's not something, you never want to push it. You know what I mean? I would never want to push this on someone. I mean, hey man, it's your journey. You live, first spiritual law, I believe, is non-interference. Like, I don't want to be interfered with. So like, I don't want to interfere with you.
Right.
Let's just have that mutual agreement.
Right. Got it. I want to talk about your transition off of tour. That's a conversation that's been coming up a lot on the podcast because not a lot of people do it gracefully, and I feel like people hang on too long. And there's also a thing where it's like, if that's all that like a lot of people maybe don't financially invest during those years where they're earning well on tour, or they just don't develop any other skill sets. And so they get off tour and they don't really have a life plan. And it's easy probably to go through depression or whatever, or even just transitioning into the mundane part of life where you have a relationship and you're home all the time rather than traveling all the time. What was that transition like for you? And also, would you do it any differently? Like, if you look back now, did you do it gracefully? Would you have done it earlier? Would you have hung around later?
No, I think it all happened really. At the time, I was thinking that I wanted to get off earlier, and now looking back on it, it would still enable like for me and my wife and my kids to have some good experiences, So that there was that benefit to it too. So a little bit of travel, and the kids got to meet a lot of the guys I was on tour with, and that was cool. And the friendships we have. That's what makes me think, like, I don't think of trophies. I think of all my friends that I met around the world, like really, really good friends that I've had for over 20 years in Brazil and in Australia and South Africa. Like, man, it's like, how else would I have ever met these people? No way. It came from surfing,
Mm-hmm.
And then to have them come and stay with us and be able to share that with them. And so, no, I feel like I got off tour pretty gracefully, and only because I was doing the meditation. I think I would have had a much harder time for sure, because you don't know. You start to go, well, this is my value because I'm being told from the industry, like, you're worth this when you're on tour, or you're not worth this because you're not on tour.
Right.
Like, why would you let someone else decide your worth?
Right. Totally.
Yeah.
You sacrifice a lot by traveling the world, obviously relationships at home and all that sort of stuff. And you were doing it for 20 years?
Yeah.
Was that how long? So you sacrifice a lot for a very long period of time.
Yeah.
What was that transition like coming home? And do you have any regrets about being on tour for 20 years and what you gave up?
That was something that plagued me pretty hard on tour. Was when I was on tour, that would have hurt inside to call, back home and hear what the kids are going through and not be there. That was the hardest for sure for me, and you can't really have that. I don't know, if you do have that feeling, you've really got to be able to find a way to be at peace with it, because it can drive you crazy. I know I saw it drive a lot of guys crazy that were on tour, that, they're wives or girlfriends back home, or hey, I need help and you're not here, and that's all true. I mean, and for some it was like it got to be too much and they would just quit abruptly and be gone, even though they were easily good enough to stay on tour.
Right.
It was just too much.
Yeah.
And I think I found a balance, and just by being like, okay, well, no matter what, there's bills that need to be paid, and I'm gonna have to work no matter if it's on here or off here. And I kind of looked at it like we're gone about the same amount of time as an airline pilot, I think firemen work 10 days a month, and like we were close to all that kind of stuff. So I just kind of like went, okay, like I'm in that category of they're doing it. There's thousands of people out there doing it, and I'm just one of those people that have that schedule. And when I'm home, though, the cool thing was I was really home. I was home all day long.
Right.
And then when I was gone all day long.
Sure. Yeah. Do you feel like would you have done anything differently? Could you have invested in relationships more? Do you have regrets about any of that stuff?
No. I mean, there was relationships along the way that it was all about the timing. It seemed like the right time to have that relationship, but then obviously if you're not still with that person, it wasn't meant to be.
Exactly.
Something didn't work out, and it was like I said, it's more to do about you and working stuff out within yourself.
Yeah. It seems like now, maybe more than in your era, people are bringing their wives and kids on tour. I don't remember seeing that a lot back then.
No, I mean in the 80s, I don't think anyone did really.
No.
Yeah, and then like you saw a lot of it. Like Danny Wills would bring his kids on tour. Okay. He was one of the first guys that just said, I don't care how much money it costs. Fuck it. I need to have them here. Otherwise, I'm not going to be here. I don't want to be here. So, and now you got, tons of guys like Ace Buchan and Philippe, and tons of guys will bring their. And Joe Parco traveled a ton with his kids.
I mean, that's family. How he won a world title, with his family on tour with him. And I feel like it could go one of two ways. Like they could be a distraction. The family could be a distraction. You almost want to have a singular focus if you're going to in order to win a world title. Or if you have all of your comforts with you, you could perform at your best.
Yeah, and it takes, the other half of the relationship has to be okay with, being by your side through it all.
Right.
It looks really glorious, right, from the outside looking in, but you got to remember, you got kids and you're in Spain and they're completely off on time and sleeping, and then you're like, you have a heat coming up and you need to get sleep so you're not super tired, and and then they don't ever stop. They want to play all day, and you're trying to like, okay, I need to surf, and when I'm not in a heat I need to go video, but then I need to hang with them, make sure they're okay. Like it's a balancing act.
Yeah, those are all things we don't see as viewers of it.
No, it's different foods that they don't like or they're not used to.
Yeah,
there's all kinds of shit going on.
Totally, just regular parenting stuff.
Right, we're not tennis players. We're not like football. We don't have that kind of salaries where you're staying at the Ritz-Carlton everywhere and you got chauffeurs. Nanny. Yeah, with a nanny. Like that's not going on. You talked about working with Chris Gallagher. When did you decide as a coach, when did you decide to bring on a coach, and why? Well, I kind of used coaches along the way. Like I would say when I was young, there was like even Lambrisi helped coach me a lot because he was older and he was kind of just showing me the ropes because he was never going to go back on tour, never want to, but he wanted me to, so he would help out. One of my earliest coaches which was awesome, was Ben Ipa. I started using him when I was like 15, 16. And that was just, that was great because he came from Hawaii, a different culture, different lingo. And I got to meet a lot of really influential Hawaiians through him, like Sonny Garcia, and learning more about like, okay, those types of waves, and because Hawaii is a totally different kind of wave. It's more powerful, heavier water, and so he helped a lot. And then somebody who helped me a ton was Matt Griggs. And when I got on Rip Curl, he was the pit boss there, and he actually made it really fun for me to stay on tour too, and taught me a lot of what he was actually teaching Mick too, because that's when Mick won his first world title. So right then I felt like reinvigorated. Like when I got second at Barra that year with Andy, that was the year I was going to retire. I was going to quit. And then getting on Rip Curl and having Mick and Matt there, it was like, oh, I'm refreshed again, because I did spend a lot of time and years traveling by myself. I would just travel alone, stay by myself, and I do like that a lot. I don't mind it at all. But it was good because I was so solo for so long to be kind of a part of a team, because I really had never experienced that on tour. I mean, we had our group, the Momentum guys, but within our group, we all had different sponsors. So we had to do stuff for them, but we weren't doing it together all the time.
Right.
And that's what was so rad about Taylor's Steel and filming for those things, because it was like we were a team that were battling for the best part, but we were still hanging out all the time.
Right.
So, and then after Taylor decided to move on to bigger and better things, which is natural evolution. At the time, I was bummed because I was like, God, he's what brought us together so many times, or at least a couple times during the year. And so then I was solo for a while there, and then, like I said, transitioned onto Rip Curl.
I'm sure each coach has their own strategy and kind of the way that they run their business, but what is the benefit in general? I mean, because the question, when you look at other sports, it makes sense that like this great athlete from a previous decade now coaches this upcoming athlete. But in surfing, lots of times it's a lesser athlete coaching a superior athlete. So what is the benefit in surfing, or why did you see it as beneficial?
Well, just their eye. They're looking at it from the beach. They're not only looking at our surfing, but they're looking at a bunch of other people surfing. And they're kind of seeing things that, like, you can get so lost in your own thought and just focusing on your surfing all the time that you're not kind of looking around going, wow, I should take a piece from him and another piece from him. And, there's stuff that you can add, and it's hard to add and start changing stuff while you're on tour can affect your results,
Yeah.
And it definitely affected mine a couple of times. But again, I didn't start to be a surfer because I wanted to be a competition surfer. I started surfing because I love surfing. Like, I still love it just as much today. I love getting better. I like looking at technique. That's what makes it fun. Otherwise, why am I here? Why am I doing this? You know what I mean? Like, I will always love the ocean. Like, but I can get in the ocean body surf. I can get in the ocean a bunch of different ways.
Right.
But for surfing, it's like there's always something to figure out.
So the coach provides like context and perspective that helps you understand the greater picture of where you fit into it.
Yeah, and you might be the kind of guy that like, hey, I like to take off and always go down and do a deep bottom turn, and Gally might go like, hey, why don't you stay up high in the beginning of the wave, then drop down and do, he's looking at different angles and different timing for different stuff, or you can really get in a rut where you just kind of do your thing because you're good at it, and he was like, let's mix it up here. Let's give them a different look. The judges want to see a different look from you. They get excited when you give them a different look.
Right. Totally. Yeah. Backtracking a little bit in the timeline, but I want to use this to enter the conversation about training and yoga and fitness and all that. Tell me about your skateboard accident when you were a kid.
Well, that's a funny story. Like, so the whole back thing of how my back got messed up was, for years we thought it was from skateboarding, because I was heavily into skateboarding when I was like in junior high. Like, go find all this drainage ditches, and I just loved skating. It was cool. I probably skated more than I surfed up until 7th grade. And I fell on my ass really hard one day, and then after that I started having this really bad sciatic pain going down my left leg. So we just all assumed that it was from me falling down. But then later on in life, they were like, no. The doctor was like, literally you would have to be in a plane crash to put your bone out this far. Like, you're born like that.
Oh, okay.
I had spondylolisthesis, and as at the worst grade, he goes, so you'd be a grade 5 if we had 5, but you're a grade 4. Like,
wow.
Yeah. So I think as I grew, my bones just grew out, they didn't grow in line.
Okay.
So they had to go in there and, put a bone graft and 2 screws and a metal bar, and all that stuff's still in me.
What age was that?
15.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was recovery like? And did you ever feel like you got to 100% healed?
That's just like, he was like, you're going to be paralyzed within, I would say, a couple months from the waist down if you don't get surgery like now.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
He's like, your sciatic nerve is getting cut in half. And I didn't at the time. I just made the nationals for the first time in NSSA, and that was a huge goal of mine. And I struggled earlier in my career as an amateur. I mean, I was bad, man. I think my first year in the NSSA, I did 10 contests, and I mean, this is back when you had to drive to Santa Cruz and Cayucas.
Yeah.
My parents were driving me everywhere. I made it through 1 heat in 10 contests.
Oh my gosh.
And parents are just going, are you sure this is for you? And the next year I started to do a little better. And then the following year I made the cut for the nationals. And then as soon as I made the cut, I went to the doctors because I couldn't get out of bed one day when I was I was going to go to school, and I couldn't move. I just thought, like, go to the chiropractor and pop it back in, whatever. And that made it worse. Even though I'm a big believer in chiropractic, and I went to the doctor and got an x-ray, and they're like, holy shit, like, you are bad. This is bad. And I was like, well, can we just wait like a month so I can surf the nationals? And the guy was like, no. And that was devastating.
Wow.
That really, and then he told me I was never going to surf again. He put me in a back brace from my chest to my knees. I had to wear 24 hours a day.
For how long?
9 months.
Whoa.
Like, I had to sleep with it. I had to, like, sponge bath, like, lay on one side, take off the top, sponge bath, because I wasn't allowed in the shower, because he was like, if you slip in the shower, you'll be paralyzed. And It was a nightmare. It was embarrassing. It was depressing. It was like I spent a lot of time in my room.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Not knowing if you'd ever get to do the things you love.
No. And then I healed up pretty good because he was like, wow, 6 months. He's like, man, you're healed. Go. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. So.
Have you ever felt the effects of it since, or do you feel 100% recovered after that?
The funny thing is I have no pain where that surgery is.
Okay.
And that surgery is archaic. I mean, you look at they don't do surgeries like this. They stopped doing surgery like mine like 15 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Or 20 years ago. I mean, it's just like funny when doctors now look at my x-rays, they're like, wow, this is old stuff in there.
Yeah. But you've always taken training seriously.
Yeah.
Was that kind of the inspiration behind it, or was it just part of your DNA?
Part of my DNA.
Okay.
It makes for some people they get to a point where they're like, I hate the gym. And for me it was like, I still like working out. I still like to like either work out in the gym, do my exercise training stuff with the ball, or go swim or go to yoga. I just mix it up now.
Okay.
I don't think there is one thing out there that is the end all for training, and it's constantly changing all the time. So that's cool. It's like surfing for me. It's like there's always something around the corner with fitness. Someone will invent something new, do something different, and
your regime, is it the ARC method? Is that what we're calling it?
Yeah.
How do you define the ARC method?
The ARC method is for, I'm not saying I'm an expert in anything because I'm not. I'm just saying like these are the things that have helped me in my career with because there's a lot of people I know with back pain or that have busted their ankle or have knee surgery or, like there's tons and tons of surfers out there that deal with this as they get older, their body gets a little bit more cranky. So I'm just like, hey, this is what's keeping me going with what I've dealt with, couple knee surgeries, back surgery, broken foot, broken ankle. Like it's, you can get past all this stuff and still like improve. It's not just like, if you want to just stay where you're at, and that's cool. But if you don't, then, check this out.
So what is the method?
The ARC method, well, it is just, like I said, it's about balance. It's not about being rigid. It's about balance, about finding your balance. And that's one thing I think for me is just trying to tell people out there, like, if you're getting to a place and it hurts, then don't do it. Don't let the ego drive you, because the ego isn't very aware and probably going to you could make yourself worse. And that is not what we're out here to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So does it incorporate meditation? Does it incorporate yoga?
It incorporates some yoga poses for sure. The meditation's a little bit separate. I mean, I want to incorporate my meditation stuff into ARC, but it's kind of like one of those things where I don't want to push it on people, and I don't want people to think it's like a woo-woo thing, because it's not. And I kind of let people, I post that a little bit separately, just to keep it, because it is separate. It's the body follows the mind. It'll always be that way. So as much as you want to spend time in the gym or whatever you think it is, like you spend 2 hours at the gym, then you can afford to spend 10 minutes with your own thoughts. And I would say that 10 minutes with your own thoughts, it would go a lot further than the 2 hours. I would cut out an hour of the gym.
Right. Does it incorporate weight training?
Sometimes I do weight stuff to where it's like stuff that's been around for years. And then but then with my trainer Paul, we made up like 2 new exercises the other day.
Okay.
Just trying stuff, that's just fun. There's so much good stuff out there. And I've been lucky enough to be close to guys like Tim Brown and Dana Beret, and like guys that really know the body. And, now I've kind of been looking into DNS, with Mike Rentale. And there's all this different stuff out there, and it's all good. It's all really good stuff, and you can't learn it all. There's the foundation training, that kind of stuff with Eric Goodman, and this stuff's all great. But I don't have time to master all this stuff. So right. I kind of like pick the eyes out of it.
Okay.
I like that from Foundation, and I like that from DNS, and I like the way that old school weightlifters did that, and so I'm constantly like tweaking it all the time.
Right. Where does diet fit into this, or like what is your kind of philosophy on diet? What do you eat on the daily? How does alcohol fit into this? And what are your thoughts or policy on drugs?
Well, diet, it's a big thing. It's definitely something to pay attention to.
Are you rigid?
No.
Okay.
No, I used to be. It was like, did this in the morning. What I like to start my day with is this Nanocraft CBD company makes this green mix. It's like, one of those vegetable green mixes, but they put CBD in it.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I put in my body first thing in the morning, because then I know I'm going to get to my coffee machine. So I like to wake my stomach up. I just don't want to put coffee down there first thing in the morning. It doesn't really work for me.
Okay.
Bullet coffee. I've kind of been into that lately. Been trying bullet coffees.
The bulletproof, like with the butter?
Yeah, the butter and the coconut oil.
Okay. What does that do? What does that do for you?
It's just kind of, I think, it's a way to, like, you can have dinner. Let's say you have dinner at 7 o'clock the night before. You get up in the morning. Instead of having a breakfast, you can have the bullet coffee, and it can kind of keep you going until about lunch. So I hate eating before I surf in the morning. I don't like having, So I normally just have the green stuff, a bullet coffee, go surf, and then I'll have lunch. Some good protein. I think your body just, you got to think of like, greens are always good, right? Your body needs protein. How are you going to get that? It's stuff is common sense. You really don't need to be a scientist, to figure this stuff out.
Well, and your body will tell you.
Yeah, your body tells you. I mean, I don't eat a lot of red meat, but there are definitely, it hits me sometimes where I'm like, I want a steak.
Yeah.
And it's probably like 2 or 3 times a month. That's good. I'm good. I just listen to it. I'm not like, oh, I can't have that. No way. If my body is like, wants it and I can feel it inside, but if I'm like, it can be a little sneaky sometimes. You're like, yeah, it wants to eat the whole box of cookies. Well, that's probably not the best idea.
That's a craving.
Yeah, that's a craving. You have to recognize the differences.
Totally. But even with the red meat too, like if I do it 10 times a month as opposed to your 2 or 3, I feel lethargic. And it's not serving me. But if I'm not attuned, I'll just keep doing it 10 times a month because it's convenient and it's easy. And I was at Costco and they had a steak there, and you start making those kind of decisions subconsciously, or out of habit.
Right, or based on money. Like, oh, I bought this, so I have to eat it.
Totally.
I bought this 3-pound steak and I've only, there's 2 pounds left and I don't want to throw it out,
Totally.
That kind of thing. So you need to be a good shopper.
Right.
And I think it's just the balance of like, I don't eat a ton of fruit, but I eat a ton of like greens and protein.
Yeah.
I don't know why my body doesn't crave fruit a lot, but I like fruit.
Yeah.
And in the mornings, I'm usually, if I eat anything, it's like eggs, avocado toast, or oatmeal.
Okay.
It's kind of like those 2 things. I'm not a real, I'm kind of a picky eater. Like I have my certain things and I can eat them over and over again and I'm totally happy.
Funny. What about alcohol?
Yeah, I drink. Like I love beer. I don't drink as much of it as I used to. Like when I started St. Archer, we we've started as Harlan now, and the beers are so good. But I just find like a really good IPA, 1 or 2, and I'm done. I'm good for that.
Yeah.
Kind of like the hard seltzers, like the Ashland we just started, just feels lighter, and I don't know. I mean, for me, it's always about like, how do you feel after it, or how do you feel in the morning, like, and yeah, I definitely have cut down on drinking. I would say like, I don't know, 60-70%.
Really?
Yeah, just because it's just a little bit's fine. It's easy to get carried away because you're like, oh man, this is so exciting. We've got the company and I got friends over, and, you just keep the ball rolling sometimes, your buddy comes over and you're just watching a game and you have, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I'm 5 deep right now.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's easy to do.
Yeah. Moderation, right? We were just asking about diet and all this stuff. There's one word for it all. It's just moderation.
Or balance, like you're talking about with art.
Yeah.
Like honestly, this comes up in my life repeatedly. I've had to learn this lesson 1,000 times, and I'll have to learn it 1,000 times more. Yeah. And it's that balance is where I want to be.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I still struggle. I mean, my kryptonite with food, and that I can't seem to, I don't know if I could ever quit, is chips and salsa.
Really?
Like, totally my kryptonite. Like, I overeat chips and salsa, for sure. It's like funny. A joke in this house. Like, I started buying, it's pretty funny. I found this crazy hot salsa, and I bought it. Now I buy it because it's self-regulating. I can only eat so much, and I can't eat anymore.
Because it's too hot.
Because I have no self-control.
That's
so
hilarious.
Until I get past that compartment I have there.
Dude, you're going to build up a tolerance to the heat.
I don't know. This stuff's pretty damn hot.
What about drugs?
What kind of drugs?
Okay, so let's classify pharmaceuticals and then also plant-based, like marijuana, mushrooms, stuff that's in...
like psychedelics.
Sure.
Right.
Stuff that's being talked about now that people are actually using medicinally, but were previously either illegal or certainly stigmatized. Yeah. Do you participate? Do you have any benefit? Are there benefits associated with it? Do you have thoughts in general?
Well, I don't want to go on too big of a rant with the whole pharmaceutical thing, but I've had people really close to me getting addicted to them, and just throwing their lives into tailspins and losing people to them. I'm pretty anti-pharmaceutical drugs. I'm sure people will say that, well, they've saved my life and whatever. But this epidemic right now of the Oxycontins and fentanyl and all this shit that's out there that they're giving people for, simple back pain. Like my son blowing his back out, just training too hard, doing jiu-jitsu, and he went to the hospital and they gave him Oxycontin. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? You gave my son Oxycontin? Are you for a backache? Like, it's unbelievable, man. It's criminal what they're doing.
Well, they're being prosecuted right now for it criminally.
They should be.
Yeah.
Because we lost, Andy got into that stuff, and, it wasn't good. It wasn't good for a lot of people, and I've seen it take people down. And it bums me out a lot that our country hasn't taken a more firm stand and just stopped it. I mean, what is the point, But again, it is a greed-based world, and everything is money-driven.
Yep.
So until
that family that I'm talking about that they prosecuted, I know their name well because I hear it all the time, but it's escaping me right now. But the amount of money that they made off of it, and then the amount of money that they were spending in lobbyists lobbying Congress to get all these legislations passed to prevent them from being held accountable, basically, for this is insane.
It's insane.
And the pharmacists who were prescribing it had 24-hour-a-day pharmacies open with people in line that they were just basically, it was a full-on drug sales operation, and they're overselling somebody's prescription, and then they're selling that stuff on the street for $40 a pill, $50 a pill, and it's essentially the same thing as heroin. It's an opiate.
It's the same exact thing as heroin, and if you get cut off from it, you go get heroin.
Yeah.
So that's my take on the pharmaceutical side. It's a real big, huge, like elephant problem in this country, and I hope smart people make good decisions in the White House someday.
It's kind of why I want to have the conversation, though, is to stigmatize it, like to stigmatize the use. There's, for some reason, it's okay in our society to prescribe drugs, to treat whatever your ailment is with a prescription drug as the first course of action. And I think we need to almost stigmatize that first course of action. Like, well, pharmaceutical drugs serve a purpose at times, but also there's a lot of things that could be solved or corrected without that if you take just basic diet and exercise. Let's start there. Go outside for a walk. Things like that people just aren't doing in their daily lives that I think they'd see a lot of benefit from. And then consider pharmaceuticals down the line, depending on what the ailment is.
Right. And like my mentor Ron says, the problem is that when we were kids and before cell phones and internet and all this stuff, you would go outside and escape into nature as a kid. And now people escape into a phone. It's a big difference.
It is a huge difference. And it's the phone that algorithms are set to keep feeding you things, basically outrage. Outrage gets the most clicks. So the phone, the algorithm's just kicking you stuff in your little echo chamber, making you more kind of enraged, feeding into your own biases already.
Right.
It's an unhealthy, entirely unhealthy thing.
Like I said, this guy Paul that a friend of mine that I do the Keeley with, he had a really good point the other day. He goes, it used to be that sex sold, and now it seems like hate sells.
Yeah.
And people are so full of fear. There's so much to fear out there, coronavirus, fear it,
totally.
Economy, fear it. They're just selling boxes and boxes of fear to everyone. And people are buying into it.
Totally.
Oh, you're going to get cancer. Oh, economy's going to crash. And you're going to get coronavirus. I mean, it's just Jesus. Do we not have enough to worry about on a daily basis without them piling on all this other fear?
Right.
It has to be a reason for it. I would say there's some sort of control there, maybe on the government's part or something that, it can control the masses and can direct them.
Yeah.
There's a book I read, I think it was called Stealing Fire. That's a pretty good book about, and they talk about controlling society through diet. We can get people to move more towards carbs if we want, or we can get people to move more towards sugar if we want. And people don't even know what's going on.
No,
they have no idea
that they're subject.
They're being directed.
Influence. Totally.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So then the other, style of drugs, the more natural ones like weed or mushrooms. Yeah, I would say this. I'm really happy that it's legal. It should have always been legal. I think it's ridiculous that people. I think about people that spent years and years in jail for weed, and now it's totally legal. You walk around smoking a joint, and God, those poor people.
It's crazy.
Decades of their lives. So again, you're gonna have to be able to regulate yourself.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a good thing for young people. I don't know. It seems that if there are some underlying issues going on already, it can enhance it or take people down further down that track.
Right.
Yeah, sure. Maybe if you're a really good, well-balanced person with, grew up in a loving household that, you can just breeze through it and it doesn't affect you. And I know people that have been doing it their whole lives, and when they do it, they smoke weed, they get really creative and motivated. And then, I've seen it to where it's made people sit on the couch, turn into couch potatoes. So there's a regulation there, and it's always goes back to you, right? The mushroom thing, I think there's definitely some benefits into not only the psychedelic mushrooms, but just some other mushrooms. I have a friend that has been kind of experimenting with different ones and made up his own formula, and he's going to bring some over for me to try. And he said it's like he got off coffee. He's stimulated, he's focused. He's a neuroscientist, so he's really geeked out on that stuff, and I don't understand really what he's doing, but yeah, I want to try it.
Interesting.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely want to, anything that is natural, it could be a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally interested in that stuff too, as we learn more about it, as we've studied it and measured it, and it's, the dosing is predictable and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm totally open to find out what we don't know yet, and that we can still learn about all that stuff.
You take a group of stoners, or people that are stoned, and you take a group over here that have been doing shots of whiskey all night. Which group is probably going to end up in a fight? I think we all know,
or
right?
committing any crime.
Yeah, I mean,
petty theft, breaking a window when they walk home, any of it.
It's just, one kind of for some reason can stimulate aggression, and the other one usually doesn't.
Right. Right. Who's Chris Borst?
Chris Borst is my shaper. I met him, God, long time ago. I mean, I was aware of him when I was an amateur because a friend of mine who owns Carlsbad Pipelines, we would, and this is back when Chris Miller was probably like early 20s. Chris Miller, he's Chris Miller, the skater.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, and Chris was just starting off on his insane skating career, but he loved surfing. He would come down and surf with Whit and I, and he was bringing around these boards, the Borst boards, and I was like, well. And then Whit started carrying them in the shop, and then I think Chris worked at Rusty for 10 years. I had already moved on from Rusty to Almeric, and then Chris started working as the head designer at CI for 10 years, just kind of doing the models, but not really shaping for anyone. And one day I go, you know what? You're this insane shaper, but no one gets boards off you. You just design. And I was like, hey, man, will you shape me a couple boards? I want to start getting boards shaped by you. And he's, yeah, sure. And this is after Al left, and I started getting boards by him, and they worked so good. I was like, wow, these are insane. Started surfing better, and so he got to a point where he was like, you know what? I want to, leave CI, and I want to get back to doing my own label. And at that time, he'd been shaping my boards for almost 6-7 years. And I was like, well, I mean, if you're leaving, I want to leave with you, because you're who I want to work with the most. And it was a hard decision because, being at CI for 20 years, it was like family.
Yeah.
But then there was Kelly was leaving, Rob was left, Trav Lee left with Kelly. And, those are my boys, and still had a lot of boys up there that still work there. I love them to death, and I always loved Channel Islands. But it was time for me to kind of move on with Chris because I felt like he had that mind that I hadn't sensed since working with Al. Like a really technical mind that sees things that I don't. I can give him information like, hey, this board's a little sticky off the bottom, and I feel like the water's coming off the rail a little weird right here, and he could just kind of, Al could just fix it. He didn't tell me really how to fix it, how you do it. Whereas Chris would kind of explain what he was doing. We have a funny nickname for him. We call him Rain Man because he's just one of these brilliant minds. He just came over yesterday and he engineered this new piece for his shaping machine. And he was like, well, what it comes with isn't good enough. It could be better. So he just designed his own stuff.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I like guys like that. I like guys that just are geeked out in what they do and have a really good passion.
Yeah.
Not just someone like, oh yeah, I shape and this is what I do. And I just kind of do this.
Right. Are you mainly riding high performance thrusters?
Pretty much, but I've kind of gotten really into the twin fin thing a little bit.
Have you?
Yeah, he made me a couple, and I'm like, wow, these are really fun. I think on tour you just go, I have to ride a thruster because they're not going to judge me if I go out there on a twin fin. And Kelly's been a big, getting on those Aquila IPA boards and ripping. I think people need to get past the point of what is the board? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, well, if he's riding a twin fin, he's just joking around or not taking it serious.
Right.
Just judge the surfing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't worry about what's on the bottom of the surfboard. Is he ripping or not?
Yeah. Which style of twin fin are you riding? Like an actual fish?
No, it's a twin fin with the wider nose and it's pulled in the tail with the little swallowtail.
Okay.
And right now I've got a little bit of, I guess you'd call it a 2+1, and we're trying to work on the outline and stuff to kind of take away the one, make it a true twin fin. I've had a hard time with that little fin in the back. It just gives me a little bit more hold.
Yeah.
And so I'm still working out if we can get that hold without that back there, but we'll see.
I feel like 2+1 traditionally referred to a longboard that has one large center fin and the two small side fins. So for what you're talking about, we almost need to like it's a 1+2 or something.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Twin with a trailer or something.
Yeah, twin with a little trailer, but not that little guitar pick.
Right.
No, this is like it's bigger than that.
Gotcha.
But I love the speed of them. It feels different than the thruster, like, and then you look like the Bonzer thing. That's a whole different feeling too.
Yeah.
Right? But all of them work.
Right.
Which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wow, this isn't just like, these aren't just retro boards that you got to cruise on. You can rip on these things.
Right.
I don't want to just cruise all the time.
What does your travel schedule look like nowadays? How often do you go on surf trips?
This year I got a bit of a travel. I mean, obviously it feels good not to be traveling 9 months of the year, especially with a family, but I got some decent, like, fun trips coming up. I'm thinking of going to South America to, maybe down to, I always kind of do one trip to Salina Cruz, summer usually. And just cause my buddy Bug's down there and like hanging out with him and Tom and, so we're probably I'm going to go to Cabo. Reef is sponsoring the softboard event there that Stab's doing.
Yep.
And that's going to be fun. And I'm going to go to Australia with Matt Griggs. We're going to do a Keeley retreat. And then I'll probably spend a few days, go see Mick or whoever, just kind of cruise around. And then I've got Nicaragua in September, another Keeley trip with Matt. And a Maldives boat trip in August, which will be another Keeley trip with Matt. And possibly, I don't know yet if it's confirmed, but maybe the Maldives Four Seasons event with the guys. So we'll see.
That looks like an epic event.
It is. It's really fun, man. It's like, I mean, I'd never be able to afford to stay at a place like that. So it's awesome to get to experience it.
Totally. And the waves are good, and the crew looks amazing, and the event looks fun too.
Oh yeah, they make it so fun for you. Every night after the event's only 3 hours a day, so they're like, crazy. And then cocktail, come for cocktails, and then you guys can just do whatever you want to do.
Right. You ever think about getting into coaching?
Yeah, I've thought about it. I mean, I've thought about and I have been coaching a little bit some local kids around here just for fun. I mean, just kind of to help them out and. Yeah, it has crossed my mind, and I do love helping out kids. It's really fun, and to see kind of where they're at, because it just brings back so many memories. I remember being there, I remember wanting it that bad, and you can kind of see the special ones that are going to like go the extra effort to make it happen. And then there's kids that just want to get better at surfing, which is cool too. They don't have any aspirations to be on tour or anything, but I like to coach people that love surfing, that are super into it. And I don't care if they're like 60, like a 6-year-old. He wants to get better, and he's going to like do whatever it takes, and that's his passion.
Could you ever imagine yourself doing it on the world tour level?
I mean, I know I could do it. It's just that kind of, you're on tour again. Totally. What I mean? Like, and maybe a couple events, but I don't think I'd want to be on tour all year. I mean, no one's asked me, so we'll see.
Right. I mean, they're not asking you because you're not selling it, but I feel like you'd be such the perfect person, especially, I mean, again, meditation, fitness, your life experience alone, like you'd be a perfect candidate.
Yeah. It'd be fun to do like maybe one event and just check it out, see what it's like, and maybe hang out with some fun people like Griff or Ethan Ewing or whatever. They're just guys that like look like they're having a good time on tour.
Yeah. Final question: what was the last surfboard that you rode?
The last surfboard I rode was a new board, a model called the Trunk that Chris just developed. And it's got this like wide, and I've never owned a board like this in my whole life. It's one of those wider nose thrusters, kind of pulled into the tail, and that's been the craze in the last few years. With that real wide nose. So I posted a clip today of from a wave from that board, and it's interesting. It's cool. It made, like I said, I need to be less rigid. Mm-hmm. I need to be more open-minded, and I've never, he was like, come on, ride it. And I was like, I don't know about that. I don't like those boards are for me. But then again, I never tried them. So, That was a lie. I don't know. Me saying that they're not for me is just like, I was like, yeah, you just go out and try it. And then I ended up having a lot of fun on it.
I saw that post.
Yeah.
So the idea for listeners is, the reason why I would use a board like that is because I'm less fit than ever and my surfing is degrading. And so I need the more foam up there just to help me out. Firstly, to catch waves. Secondly, for stability. But in your caption, you were saying that it's actually great for when the waves are not as good. Like if the wave is not high performance and fatter, that wider planing surface also helps.
Yeah, and for me, surfing is like speed. It's all about speed.
Totally.
For me. And like when I lose speed, like I'll know I've lost it, right? So, and sometimes you can get a little bit bored when the waves are mushy. And I notice that sometimes when the waves are like waist high and mushy, I get a little bit uninterested.
Yep.
And so this is cool. It's like, okay, wow, I can kind of like fly on this like wider nose board over these mushy sections. And, as I'm looking on Instagram at everyone getting barreled in Morocco or Indo, and I'm just like, I'm just bummed that I'm not there.
Totally.
I got to make what I have fun.
Yeah.
If life hands you lemons, you got to make that lemonade, right?
Yeah,
so
totally.
These boards help you make that lemonade.
Glad to see you expanding your horizons.
Yeah. Wait for the twin fin. I'm excited about that.
All right. Well, this was a great chat. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, David.